Hello, welcome to the Courageous Self-Care podcast. I'm your host, Christina Marlette. On this show, we talk about self-care that goes beyond what the media and the medical system tells us is self-care. So often we hear that self-care is things like cucumbers on your eyes and relaxing music playing or holidays at the beach. And while all of those are fantastic and important, absolutely, there are so many ways that we can incorporate self-care into our daily lives, even if we think we have no time for it. And doing this requires learning about how to do it. So with Courageous Self-Care, I've developed 12 different skill sets, because that's all self-care is. It's just a bunch of skills. It is simple and straightforward to learn. And once you know them, you can practice that courageous self-care moment to moment throughout the day. So it's never anything you have to set aside a week at a time to recover from your crazy life. You get self-care infused into your daily experience. Often for this, it takes a guide because we just don't know what we don't know. And I've spent years working on this, so I'm so excited to share this information with you. And I also love to get other guides on the show because I don't know everything. So I'm so happy to have Ruthann Weeks with me here today. Welcome to the show, Ruthann.
Thank you so much, Christina. I'm really excited about the opportunity to be here this morning and share some information with your listeners that they might find some value in.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about what you love to do and how you love to spend your time, Ruthann.
Well, I'm a solo entrepreneur, so that takes up a lot of my time, but my business is my passion. So it's charging and not draining, although, it does come into play at times, but I founded my business, Harmony Training and Development, as a social enterprise, addressing the rampant social issues of workplace violence and harassment. So that includes sexual harassment and domestic violence as it affects the workplace, bullying, psychological health and safety, and that kind of thing. So I'm very passionate about sharing that message. And so I actually get recharged from my work. But it can be draining sometimes. So I build self-care into my everyday practice for sure.
Yeah, that's super important. And I love that your business is based or focused around the word harmony. That's so important to be for what we are striving to bring more of into the world rather than being against what we don't want. So like if you were calling it the anti-bullying in the workplace, it makes us think about bullying in the workplace. But because you're focusing on harmony, that is so beautiful and brings such a wonderful feeling to it. How did you decide to name your business?
I guess I just, I really wanted to incorporate a word that was positive and did bring that that sort of sense of cohesion to the workplace, because there's nothing more divisive than a toxic corporate culture where different rules apply for different people. And, harmony is something that it not only applies to music, but it applies to life in general. When we are working in sync together in a workplace or in life or in any kind of an organization, it leads to maximize profits and productivity and just engagement and all the good stuff that comes from being a cohesive team.
That sounds so important and so valuable. I love that is your focus. And I can totally identify with getting filled up by your work. I feel the same way. I just love thinking about courageous self-care and trying out new things and getting the message out. And sometimes when I take a break, I stare at walls because I don't know what to do. So I just get so filled up by courageous self-care. So I get what you're saying. So you said that your passion takes up lots of your energy and your time, and you love to focus on it. And at the same time, you make some time for self-care. So I love to get guests on the show to share a current favorite self-care practice. So what's something that you love to do?
I strive to get up every morning at 5:30 and the house is quiet, and have some time to myself to pray and meditate and really just kind of get focused for the day. I'm always seeking a higher purpose for my life and the work that I do. And I find in order to tap into that, you really have to find that quiet time to seek and sort of hear that still small voice, whether you call it intuition or infinite intelligence or God or whatever you call it. If you're attuned to those spiritual things, you can't always connect with that in the busyness of life. So that's something that I definitely build in to my morning practice. And often, if I'm working from my home office and I'm really focused on something, I will take what I call a mental health break, usually just after lunch. And I happen to believe that all dogs are therapy dogs. And I have a 95-pound German Shepherd who is 5 years old, and I just adore him and love him. And he needs his exercise every day, as I do. So usually, I incorporate that 45-minute to 1 hour walk every day. And quite often it is in the afternoon, just after lunch, like I say, when I kind of feel like I need a bit of a mental health break. So even just to get outside and get the fresh air and the sun on my face it's really good for the soul and body, mind, spirit as well.
Absolutely. So I have some questions for you. Would you say that you're a morning person?
I am much more productive in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I was retired and didn't have any kind of pressing on my time, that I would probably naturally go to bed around midnight and get up around 7.
Mm-hmm.
But what's happening just because of demands in my life, I've been getting up at 5:30, and so bedtime is usually 9:30. I read until 10, and then it's kind of, I have a good restful sleep. But I am much more productive in the morning. When I was working full time and taking my post-secondary, I found trying to read after 8 o'clock and get anything to stick in my brain was just redundant. So I would get up at 5 in the morning, and that's when I was much more productive. So I guess maybe kicking and screaming, I am a morning person.
I ask because I hear that from a lot of women, that they get up early to have that time to themselves. And it can be incredibly soothing, like in the quiet, and it's all your time to yourself. And so I'm wondering how, if someone is seeking that time but says, well, I'm not a morning person, what are the benefits that you've seen, other than being productive in the morning, that encourage you to get up even when you don't feel like it?
Well, it's really much easier this time of year, especially in Canada, because, it's bright here now. We just had our summer solstice and the sun is up at 4:30 in the morning. So that certainly helps. It's a little harder in the winter when it's cold and dark. But for me, it's just about, it's the results I get, right? It's because it works. It's because if I am let's say lazy and sleep through and just say, oh, I'll do it later.
Yeah.
Very often just doesn't happen because life gets busy and life gets in the way, and family demands and work demands and, friend demands. It just takes over. So I just find it's a really good way to get the day started and sets a tone for the day. It's like making your bed,
Mm-hmm.
It just sets the tone for the day. It doesn't mean that anybody else is even going to see it maybe, but it's a self-care thing. It just sets the tone for the day and your life and kind of what you expect out of life and what you expect from others. I think you attract what you give. So if you're giving your best, even if you don't feel like it, it'll come back to you in one way or another.
I totally agree. And something I wanted to say about that, getting up early, is courage. The whole definition about courage is getting uncomfortable, because what's on the other side of that discomfort is something that you value. And so that's all it is. Getting up early is just being uncomfortable. And of course, you have to have the habits at night to support getting up. If you're going to bed at 2 a.m. and getting up at 5, that's not going to serve you in any way. But being uncomfortable when that alarm goes off, or getting up when your brain wakes you up early in the morning, then it's worth it. And I can tell from what you're saying that starting the day with that peaceful quality on your own terms without being pulled in different directions sets you up for more success throughout the day.
Yeah, and I should put the caveat in that I am a fan of coffee. I really do appreciate the Java,
Yeah.
and that's usually one of the first things I do when I get up. I really admire those people who can do it without that and just, are maybe making a healthier choice. But for me, I am a fan of caffeine, and it really helps me kind of get the day started. But I only drink it in the morning and then switch to water for the rest of the day, understanding that that's really what my body needs. But I never use an alarm. It's interesting that you say that because it is my natural clock that always
Hmm.
wakes me up. So that tells me again, it's just affirming, right? That
Yeah.
is, it is my natural bent.
Nice. I love that. Thanks for sharing that. And it's super interesting. I hear people say that from time to time as their favorite self-care practice, and it just makes perfect sense to start the day on your own terms. I love that. So we're going to pause for a quick commercial break. When we get back, Ruthann is going to share a story of courage. So be sure to stick around. Welcome back. Thank you for being here. You are practicing courageous self-care just by listening today. So glad that you are here listening from wherever you are in the world. So grateful to be connected with you. All right, so I love to get guests on the show to share a story of courage, and I have a whole bunch of reasons why I love to do that. So the one that I'll share today is that we truly learn through story. And it's so valuable to hear what other people have gone through in their lives, because sometimes it makes us think, oh my gosh, I went through that. Maybe that means I'm courageous too. And other times it gives us courage to move beyond where we are. If we feel stuck, then we hear a story, we're infused with that energy of courage, and it really can shift us. And as humans, we absolutely love stories. They're a great way to learn. So, and courage is contagious. The more we hear about it and immerse ourselves in it, the more we can embody it through our own actions. So, Ruthann, having said that, I would love to hear a story of courage from you.
Well, because of the work that I do, whenever I'm in a group of people, I often have someone approach me and they thank me for the work I do, particularly around workplace bullying and sexual harassment and that kind of stuff. They tell me about their own experiences and how small and insignificant they felt in their workplaces, how disposable, how they talk about how their physical and mental health has been affected, the sleepless nights, anxiety, the thoughts of going to work that gave them heart palpitations. I mean, it shows up in physical ways, high blood
Absolutely.
pressure, um, sleepless nights. Like I say, they felt despair, they feel anger. And yeah, so it's very prevalent. And my own personal story of toxic workplace culture that I'm going to share with you is not an easy one for me to share, because it was a very painful and raw experience in my life. I had left a job that I loved. I'd been there for over almost 4 years, and I worked with people that I loved. I was working as a certified information referral specialist, and while I was there, I was doing my post-secondary in human resource management. And although I really liked the job and I liked the people that I worked with and they liked me, I had just outgrown it. There was no room for me to stretch and grow, and I was just really feeling that I needed to do that. So I took my time, and I joined an organization that hadn't seen turnover in decades. So I assumed that to mean that it was a great place to work, and people had been there, were very happy in their work, and maybe they were. I can't speak for them, but what happened? My experience was two directors had retired, and they combined the position into another director position, and they brought me in. So my first day on the job, because I'm an information junkie and I really like that, I had asked for a copy of the organizational chart. On the organizational chart, there were 3 directors, 3 department heads, of which I was one, and we all reported directly to the executive director. I found out my first day on the job that the executive director was retiring in 3 months, and without any communication or feedback, that was pretty much the last I saw of her. She kind of just disappeared. She didn't come in. I saw her maybe 2 or 3 times within the 3 months that I was there. And there was another peer on the org chart who was also another director, who assumed the role of executive director. Like I said, none of this was communicated, so it was kind of uncomfortable in a way. And I just really struggled to fit in. This other director that had assumed the ED role had been there also for a long, long time. And she had direct communication with the absentee ED, and I didn't. And she was, this director was not involved in hiring me. She didn't trust me. She didn't like me. She had championed for actually someone who worked under me for the position. My team and I, we got along great. They bought my vision. You know, we had a good experience, but the struggle was that I just couldn't fit in. I was just struggling. It was a bad scene. And within 3 months, covertly, behind closed doors, with no chance for me to tell my side, tell my story, or offer any feedback, I was systematically bullied out of that position by this director who had the ear of the ED. I came in the Tuesday after Thanksgiving here in Canada and was terminated. And I was devastated because this was my shiny new opportunity to grow in my career and bring my innovative ideas and passion. And I'm a heart-centered people helper. And I was perplexed by it because it was within the nonprofit sector, and nobody works in the nonprofit sector to get rich. So, you know, I expect to find other heart-centered people there. And, you know, I doubt very much if that director would see what she did to me as workplace bullying. She didn't know me, she didn't get to know me, but she made a lot of assumptions about me. And the fact that it's a type of workplace bullying. It's covert, it's behind closed doors, it's systematic, and it's unfair, but it happens. So I would like to say that happened in October, like I said, and I founded my business in January of the following year. And I would like to say that I hit the ground running and Harmony Training and Development took off. But you know what? I was really wounded. So much of our identity is tied up in the work that we do. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we spend a lot of time in our workplaces, and it becomes really integral to who we are as people. And I really sort of had to do some searching. And I got really busy eventually with learning about the issues and getting my psychological health and safety advisor training and all of that. But initially, I watched a lot of Netflix. Mm-hmm. I ate bad food. I had bubble baths and chocolate because that's what I needed at the time.
Yeah.
One of the things that I did that was most important and really, really helped me with that missing identity piece was I was very fortunate in that in a small town near me, there is a nonprofit coffee shop called Higher Grounds. And it is run solely by volunteers. Well, I guess there is a paid staff manager, but everyone else who works there is a volunteer. And I knew the ladies that were running this organization. And so I signed up for a volunteer shift once a week to go in and just support them. They needed volunteers, and I needed purpose. So it worked out really well. And I learned how to be a barista. So it was kind of fun. And you know what? They were kind to me. They knew what I had gone through. They were supportive. I just want your listeners to know that sometimes the best way to get out of your own muck is to just serve, to seek opportunities to serve other people and just find some worth and value and purpose there. You know, everybody has value and everybody has immense worth, but we can't always see it and we don't always feel it. And sometimes the best way to find it is just to give yourself away and seek opportunities to serve.
Mm-hmm. That's a really powerful story, Ruthann. I can tell it's really poignant for you. And I appreciate you being courageous and sharing it with us. And I love how you brought yourself through it. Absolutely, there's times when Netflix is amazing therapy, and chocolate for sure, and bubble baths, yes, definitely. And I love how you didn't stop there and get stuck there, because those are all things that where they're Band-Aid solutions. So they're not the permanent fix. And what you did was you reached out. You decided to go beyond what was familiar for you, out into the unknown. You created some meaningful connection and started to build up that self-worth that sounds like it was lost for a while. So I really want to acknowledge you for that and honor you. And I think that's such a cool opportunity that your town has in that cool little volunteer run coffee shop.
Yeah, it really is. And it's changed hands a couple of times, and now it's run by a faith community. That one of the churches in Warrenville is running it, and they've done a lot of stuff there. I actually served on the board for a while. I did that work for two years, and then I just got too busy and couldn't commit to the 4 hours a week. But I served on the board for a while, and now, I'm still a supporter. I go in there all the time and support them that way. And the way it operates is all the tips that they get. I mean, they have to cover their operating costs, but all the tips that they get and anything above operating goes back into community. So it's very much an outreach and a ministry, and it was exciting to be a part of that. But I think no matter where you are and where you live, you can always look for opportunities to serve. Maybe it's just targeting a neighbor, an elderly neighbor who might feel isolated or need help with snow shoveling or grass cutting or whatever happens to be needed in your neighborhood. And maybe they need a drive. Maybe they just need some company. Maybe they'd like to share a meal. Maybe it's the young mom who's overwhelmed with her family and kids and responsibilities. And there's always a way to serve and to help relieve the burdens of hurting people. So I just encourage people to do that as a form of self-care.
Absolutely.
It releases those feel-good hormones and endorphins and all that good stuff. And yeah, I just think it worked for me. That's all I can say. And I'm sure it would work for others as well.
I love your other suggestions on how you can go about doing that. So thank you for sharing those. And yeah, thanks again for sharing your story of courage. That's really powerful. So listeners, if you are experiencing any of the kinds of things that Ruthann has talked about, bullying in the workplace, feeling inferior, stuff happening behind closed doors or overtly, I do invite you to get in touch with Ruthann, because her work is powerful and we all deserve to feel important, not insignificant. So Ruthann, where can people get in touch with you online?
Well, my website is harmonytraining.ca. I'm located here in Alberta, Canada. I am interested in growing the speaking portion of my business, and I'm willing to travel. So I'm seeking opportunities there. If there's anybody that's interested in learning more about these issues and worker rights, it's different in different places of the globe, but I believe we're in a social shift right now, and employers who are exemplifying excellence within their organizations, they pay attention to things like physical, mental, and emotional health of their employees. And it naturally leads to increased harmony, which naturally leads to maximized profits and productivities for their clients. So that's my website. My email is rweeks@harmonytraining.ca. You can find me on LinkedIn, Ruthann Weeks, and I'm also on Facebook under Harmony Training. So yeah, please reach out if you're interested in following me, if you're interested in going onto my website and signing up for my newsletter, do that. I'd love to have you as part of my tribe.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing everything you did today, Ruthann. It's a really important topic that deserves not to be under the rug. Is that an expression? Not to be hidden. It deserves to be spoken about so that more people can come forward and be courageous and shift the culture that, like you said, can be rampant in the workplace. So thank you very much for bringing that issue to light. And listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. I am so grateful for you connecting, practicing this form of courageous self-care. I encourage you to do something that is uncomfortable this week, like maybe getting up a little bit earlier or speaking up for yourself, or getting out into nature with a loved pet, or all by yourself. That's okay too. Thank you for listening. This show is on usually once or twice a week, usually one guest and then one teaching episode. So I invite you to come back again and get some more good info on how you can practice courageous self-care. So Ruthann, thank you very much again for being here and sharing your story.
Thank you, Christina. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's been great.
Awesome. My pleasure. All right. I'll talk with you again soon. Bye-bye for now.